And here we are. Welcome back to the Redshirt Sophomore, where we never sit out. We're your hosts, Matt and Chris Dawson, MDCD. CD, what is going on? What's going on? It is conference championship week. We're here. It is
Ecstatic. I
here.
mean, and to be honest, like it is a huge weekend. When was the last time like conference championships like all mattered and the whole every Power Five conference mattered and like well maybe not Big Ten right now. You kind of that's kind of a snoozer. But regardless, like this is awesome. Like this is really awesome. The last year the 14 playoffs, so much is gonna be decided. The top 8 teams are all in it potentially, and like yeah, it's awesome. I'm really excited. Thank you guys for watching, tuning in. Obviously, if you're new here, please hit that thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new as well. We'd really appreciate it. We're working on our goal to 200 subs, and then thereafter that. So we're working hard. So if you like the content, like Matthew always says, like the video.
Like the content, like the video. It's a very, very simple rule. So what's on the agenda today, CD? Well, we got 10 games because there's 10 conferences. We'll maybe talk about Army and Navy in a later video if you guys like that. If you guys want that, let us know in the comments. We can maybe get something figured out there. We're just doing previews today. There's no upset meter. There is going to be a little Dawson's Diner, but it's a mini platter, right? We don't have as many games this weekend. Okay, Dawson's Diner is serving only appetizers. All right. However, some really interesting games with some very, very interesting ways that you can bet. So make sure you follow us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft if you want to get those late, right? We're only going to have 2 plays today, right? We only have 2 plays today. You guys are going to have to wait to the end of the video to find that out. But stay tuned on Twitter. Stay tuned on Twitter. You ready to get into these games?
Oh, for sure.
The first one. Let's talk about the Pac-12. You know why? Because it's the last Pac-12 championship game that we will ever see in our lifetime.
That's terrible. That is very sad. And what a year it's been for the Pac-12. I mean, the swan song for the Pac-12 was just incredible.
Yeah. And it's like, look, if Washington wins, right, they're automatically in the playoffs. And Oregon, right, if they win, they have a pretty decent chance of getting in the playoffs based on where the playoff committee values them right now, right? So, and the Pac-12 is a conference who has, I'm not going to say inexplicably, but they've been left out of the playoffs a couple times here. They really
They
have.
have.
Oregon has never been. Oh, actually, they were at 2013, 2014, the first year. Within the first year, they lost.
They were. They beat Florida State in that first
They
year
beat,
and then lost to Ohio State.
that's right. Okay, so Oregon has not been in a while. Washington hasn't been in since they got trounced by Bama that one year.
I believe these are the only 2 teams that have made it in the playoff era.
And look, this is one of the very few conference championship games that's a rematch. We haven't had a lot of those. I think there's 3, if I'm counting off the top of my head, right? There's 3 that we get of these 10 games. It's a rematch. And the first one was a classic. It was awesome. It came down to going for it on 4th down. Dan Lanning getting some criticism there, undeservedly getting criticism for that. What he should have gotten criticism for was the way he handled the end of that first half, going for the touchdown on like the 7-yard line instead of kicking the field goal. Well, they lost by 3. So, but the story of this is Washington wins that game, right? Washington was favored in that game. And now Oregon is favored by 9.5 points. I believe this line opened at 7.5 and is now at 9.5. So people
Every
and the
week.
money every week, Oregon in the power ratings has slowly crept away. They've separated themselves. And Bo Nix right now, he's staring a Heisman in the face. Now, whether it should be Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix, it's neither here nor there. We know how I feel if you've been watching the show. But Bo Nix has a real chance to play himself onto the podium.
As he should. And I do think you mentioned that first game. That was a classic. You do talk about this game is in Las Vegas, right? Last game was in Seattle. It was in maybe one of the best environments of college football, especially this year. I mean, how many times, how loud was that stadium? Right. Like you saw Oregon go on the road and compete, come back in the game after maybe going down early. Yeah, it was a great game. It was a classic game. And Oregon's playing fantastic right now. Washington's slowing down. Michael Penix, ever since this game, honestly, has kind of been, I guess, not himself is the right word. Maybe limited, maybe hurt, maybe just, the yips. Who knows what it really is going on. with Washington. But in this game, remember, right? They did not have Jalen McMillan, and I get it. He has not been, you know, the same Jalen McMillan we know post injury. But coming in the year, he was an All Pac-12 player. Like he was a stud last year. Him and Roma Dunze, and with the emergence of Jalen Polk and Dylan Johnson, who's maybe banged up too, who knows there. That's Washington. If you want to find some hope there and like, hey, like we haven't looked good, but hey, we're not fully healthy. We beat Oregon and we didn't even have one of our best offensive weapons. And that like ground games really come on strong as well. Yeah, that's your thinking if you're Washington there.
Look, I mean, here's the thing. You can use the past to predict the future, but sometimes you end up looking like a fool.
Mm-hmm.
Taking Oregon -9.5 here. I think they cover by double digits. And that's not. I think this all kind of comes down to Michael Penix. Like, is Michael Penix going to play like Michael Penix can? I don't know that he is, right? I know that Oregon's defense is really good. Now, here's the thing. I'm not going to say that Oregon's offense is going to light up Washington because it might. I mean, they put up 30 points last time on them, but like I've been impressed with Oregon's ability to move the ball down the field, but I haven't been impressed with their ability to stretch the ball down the field. Uh, if that makes sense. Bo Nix has had some good moments. Troy Franklin is a fantastic receiver. And they of course they got some other talents there and they run the ball really effectively. That, if you ask me, is the real strength of this team, the way it's balanced like that, being able to run the ball. I just think I think Oregon's able to do it, man. I think they kind of overpower this Washington team. I don't know that Washington's defensive line is very good. Oregon's offensive line seems to be getting better every single week, and you could argue that it is the best in the country. And I would not necessarily argue you. I would not necessarily argue you. Week over week, this team's gotten better offensively on the line of scrimmage. Give me the Ducks -9.5. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you here. I think Oregon has just been playing so well. I think the reason why, like you look at the resume, and it's really not fantastic, but they're up there in the top six. Right? I think they moved to 5. They hit ahead of Ohio State. They're the top of the one losses because they're just playing so good. Their power rating is through the roof. They're dominating. No matter who they're playing, they're dominating who they are lining up against. I think people just assume they're going to come in here into Vegas and just pretty much just stomp Washington. That's why you see the line so high. Remember, it was -3.5 in Washington, like you mentioned. That's almost a 12-point swing, 13-point swing. Like that is a huge swing. And just, I get it, home versus neutral site, fine, you can tell me that. But even a 10-point swing is massive in the course of a season. I do think the X factor here, yes, Bo Nix is a stud. Yes, Troy Franklin. The O line is fantastic. I think Bucky Irving here. We mentioned just every time we talk about Oregon, I love the kid. I think he is the best player on the field when he is on the field. They need to find creative ways to get him the ball on the ground, inside, outside zone runs, and then also through the air. He's a dynamic back with the ball in his hands, and he's really shown that all year. I think he's what makes that offense run and that team run. I
So
do
let me
think
ask
though,
this. So
yeah.
Bucky Irving should win the Heisman
Well, that's the
because he's the
case here
best player on
is
the field, right?
well, okay, but like we all know the Heisman is not just the best
I'm
player.
not trying to attack you. I'm just
It's
saying
it's a
I'm
stats,
the
it's a quarterback, it's a position award, it's contenders and championship. Like that's what it is. It's
it's a
become
value award.
like that.
That's what it should be.
Well, because then the number one pick in the draft, like should Trevon Walker have been Heisman? Like, no, obviously not. And I don't think Bucky deserves to be Heisman. I think he's that good. He's that good. He makes that big of a difference on Oregon that that just pays huge dividends there. I do think their D line, man, Birch and those guys up front, like they can be a difference here. If Dylan Johnson isn't 100% healthy or they have to rely on somebody else there, make Michael Penix stand in the pocket there. Troy Fatano and that O line has been fine. A little bit underwhelming, if you ask me, especially the past couple weeks. You saw Brendan Jackson and Rod Stone, like in company last week, get to him, right? Like that's if you're looking at 3rd and long here for Penix and Odunze's not open on his first read, like could be in real trouble. He can be in real trouble, and that's where you get tip passes, strip sacks on 3rd down. And that's where this game can really start to separate. And you see Oregon, whenever they have a chance this year, they just step on teams' throats. And that's what's really impressive about Dan Lanning and crew there at Oregon.
So here's another question. You think if they win this game, if Oregon wins this game, say it's a close game, assuming that Let's assume Florida State loses. Okay. Not that they will lose. I'm just assuming in this scenario. Is Oregon in? Let's say Texas wins and Alabama wins. Are they in and should they be in?
Well, it's hard to put them in over Bama, as Bama had just beaten the team who's won 30 straight and number one team, back-to-back national champions. Like, it's hard to do that, right? When your only quality win this year is Washington. And in Washington, you are a 10-point favorite in this game. Yes, Washington's good. They're top 3 in the country. I get that. But like, are they one of the top 4 teams? In my mind, eye test tells me absolutely. Absolutely. But at the same time, like, most deserving, and like, it's a hard balance. In my opinion, I would put in Bama, one loss Bama in over a one loss Oregon. And I would even consider putting a one loss Texas over one loss Oregon with the way
So
that
you would put a one loss Bama, who, by the way, lost so you would put Bama in over before you would put Texas in.
No. If the argument is Bama versus Texas, then this is gonna be weird logic. Okay, stay with me here. The argument is Bama versus Texas. Texas should get in, without a doubt. You have to reward on field. That shouldn't matter. If the argument is Oregon versus Bama, I think Bama gets in. I think if the argument is Bama, Oregon, and Texas, if there's 3 teams vying for it, I don't think you can put in Texas over Oregon, right? I don't think you can put in Bama over Texas, right? So it's like a 3-team triangle, right? And it's like rock, paper, scissors, right? So you have a rock, you have a paper, and a scissors all going at each other. I think the common denominator that will rise from that situation is going to be Bama's best win is Georgia, and nobody else can touch a win like that. And that's going to put them in, if that makes sense. I think the committee did themselves a disservice, or if the committee is, if they were smart, or if they actually felt this way, like, that's why the rankings were weird to me. All year they had Oregon ahead of Texas, ahead of Bama, which is fine. But I think they're setting themselves up for chaos if Bama wins, if Oregon wins, if Texas wins, like, and Florida State loses, and stuff like that happens. Like, then you're looking at a ton of one-loss teams that you have clearly defined the expectation beforehand, and then you have to do some gymnastics to like explain your way through it. And I think if I heard Josh Pate say this, right? Like, he said, put Oregon and Bama and Texas all at tied for 6th and just leave it at that. I mean, the AP poll does it, I believe. And the committee can do whatever they want, to be honest, in their ranking. It's their own rankings. Like, who's going to say no to that? And then you can, like, okay, like, then we'll see some separation here and actually figure that out. I think it's going to make for a wild, wild Sunday selection show if some things happen where chaos doesn't ensue. And everyone's going to have a right to be pissed, I think, which is awesome. And the beauty of the 14 playoff is, like, people get left out. People who deserve to be in do not get in, and, like, maybe not deserve, but people who believe they should be in aren't in. And I think that's what I love about 14 playoff. And I think moving to 12 team, like, this conference Saturday would not mean as much as it would in a 14 playoff. I get it. This is the exception, not the norm. Most of the time we have like 1 through, like, last year, the conference championship didn't matter. Like, Georgia crushed LSU and TCU lost and still got in. Michigan crushed Purdue and all that happened. Ohio State was just sitting there and just waiting to be put in. So, like, it didn't really matter. I get that, but this is the perfect year to finish off the 14 with, because, like, it's gonna be crazy. It's crazy. What's Washington's, getting back to the game here? What's Washington's keys to victory, or how do they win as a 9.5-point favorite? How do they, make up for those 9.5 points?
Michael Penix has to make up those 9.5 points.
Yeah.
I don't think their defense can do it. I think they might be able to get a couple stops. I don't think Bo Nix is prone. He's not prone to turning the ball over anymore like he was in his younger days. He's holding on to the football very well. This is going to come down to, can Michael Penix elevate himself and his team, that offense, to score more points than Oregon scores?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. And you got to have bounce of ball luck, turnovers, win field position battle. Washington's going to have to play a pretty flawless game. And I think Oregon is going to have to make some mistakes. And they haven't done that this year. They really haven't, other than, like, on 4th down. You'll talk about that. They missed a field goal, whatever else. Like, in that Washington game, the reason why everyone's so high on Oregon coming out of that, and, like, for the rematch to happen, is, like, a lot of weird things happen. But you also have to credit Washington for getting stops on fourth down, which they've done all year. You have to credit Washington for putting themselves in a chance to win the football game. Michael Penix going down on the last drive and scoring there. Like, just because Oregon, missed some opportunities doesn't mean that Washington just just was given the game. Like, they had to actually earn it. I do think though that, yeah, I'm gonna say this a lot this video. Like, trust your gut. Like, you've seen 12 games of these people, of these teams, right? You know what you're getting. I get injuries are exception. We'll talk about Florida State when we get there. No idea exactly how they're gonna play, but like, on a 12 game sample size, Oregon has looked way superior than Washington is. And I think that's why the line is this high, and I think it's for a good reason.
Speaking of college football playoff implications, let's talk Texas versus Oklahoma State and the Fighting Cowboys of Mike Gundy. I thought I was gonna be more excited about this game than I am. I'm excited about this game. Believe me, I will watch this game. I am the one who put the preseason Oklahoma State, right, future to win the conference. Okay. But at the same time, this just looks like a terrible mismatch to me. And I understand completely why the line is at 15.5.
Yeah, I think that's the key point here is, yes, Oklahoma State deserves to be in the Big 12 championship. They've earned the right to be the second best team in the Big 12. Do they have the best chance in the Big 12 to beat Texas? And that's absolutely not. Obviously, we saw Oklahoma early in the year do it. We saw Kansas State take them down to the wire, yada, yada. We mentioned it. Iowa State gave them troubles, but that was also, in Ames. Like, this is going to be in Texas. Obviously not at University of Texas in Austin. It was going to be in Jerry World there in Dallas. Oklahoma State and Ollie Gordon loves to run the football. And Alan Bowman, with all peace and love to Alan Bowman, who has actually played really good football the past couple weeks, especially when going down early.
Okay, well, let
I
me
don't
tell you,
think.
second half Alan Bowman is a good football player. First half
Yeah.
Alan Bowman, the last 3 weeks, which by the way, UCF, Houston, BYU. First half
Golly.
Alan Bowman, I'm pretty sure
Huh.
has like 5 or 6 interceptions.
Yeah, the thing is here, that can't happen. That cannot happen against Texas. I get it. They've struggled in the red zone, whatever, yada yada. Texas has been its own worst enemy at times in Big 12 play. But there is a superior talent gap here. And you can come back against BYU, you can come back against Houston. You get buried by BYU or by USCF, right? Like, this is you have to play flawless here. And I believe Mike Gundy is gonna have his boys ready to go and humming. The problem is this Texas defensive front is elite. Is elite. And the problem is in games where you've seen Texas give up points, right? Oklahoma was in it, Kansas State comes to mind. Like, these are elite quarterbacks, elite Big 12 quarterbacks, right? And that played really well and brought himself back into these games. Alan Bowman, like you mentioned earlier, he's got some good weapons. He plays well in play action. I don't think he can do it, not against this caliber of defense.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing about Alan Bowman too. I like that he trusts his receivers because the receiving core is pretty good. It's pretty
Yeah.
solid. Brendan Presley, he's a good player. The problem is, I think and here's the thing I like and dislike about it, right? They find ways to get him the football, right? Sometimes it's behind the line of scrimmage, and sometimes it leads to negative plays. But guys like Owens, Leon Johnson is a monster. If Leon Johnson gets going in this game the way that he got against Oklahoma, I think things get interesting. Like we said, Oklahoma State just can't play bad in the first half. They got to get out to a good start. They need to. So, because then that way you can get Ollie Gordon going, But now the problem is Oklahoma State, in order to win games, has to get Ollie Gordon going. This is the one team that you're going to find a really tough time getting him going, especially because, look, the last thing Texas wants is Ollie Gordon rushing for over 100 yards. the best thing that they can do is say, Alan Bowman, here's the football. Our secondary's been banged up all year. It's been vulnerable at times. What are you gonna do to it? You know? So now is Mike Gundy an absolute G, and is he an absolute master class coach? Yes. But Texas needs style points here. It's not just a winning in for them. They got to look good doing it. I'll take Texas minus 15.5. I think I might regret that. But give me Texas and the points.
It is hard to bet against Mike Gundy in big games. He'll get his offense and his team after it. Like they will be ready to play this game. There's no doubt about it. I also believe in Sark, and you mentioned it. They need style points. They need this game. They are so close. Texas football is so close to being, back. Like everyone's been trying to dub them for a while, and they want this game. They want the last Big 12 championship game. Like Texas, considers themselves the class of the Big 12. They wanted to go out on top, right? Which they haven't done in over a decade, right? If we look at Ollie Gordon, you mentioned it. Like he can't get going. It's hard to find a way for Oklahoma State to win this football game. And that's not, unless you're predicting turnovers and like bad luck, whatever, bounce a ball, which I'm not going to do here. You look in games where he has struggled in, right? In conference play, UCF, he didn't play great against. That's it. And they struggled. Right. And other than that, in conference play, they've been putting up 30+ points on just about everybody. And the thing is, I don't see it. I don't see it on this D line here for Ollie Gordon, Sweat, and Murphy up front. Like these guys are good fellas up there. At the same point, like if you're Texas too, like you hope you can play 7 in the box or like a light box, what they call it, 6.5, 7, and still and give your guys his help on the secondary, which is a little bit banged up, which has been exploited at times in Big 12 play. Which will give maybe some Ollie Gordon attempts up front, or maybe they can scheme up some things open. But yeah, you mentioned, I think Texas needs style points. Sark is going to have the boys humming. And I think it's a bad matchup here. And this is not going to take anything away from Oklahoma State and the masterclass that, Mike Gundy has put on for everybody to see. But it is what it is here. It is what it is. I'm going to take Texas minus 15.5, by the way.
That's fair. And I agree with you. For all those reasons. Let's talk SEC. Let's go to Georgia, Bama. I mean, once again, college football playoff implications for an SEC championship game against Georgia and Alabama. Bama catching 5.5.
Which has moved up. Last week I got it at 3.5. Yeah.
You took Georgia 3.5?
I did, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna take Bama 5.5.
Ooh. I explain why. I want to hear this here because I want to hear this. All
right. Here it is. Carson Beck has been very good this year. If anyone has been following the show, you have to know that I am the conductor on the Carson Beck fan train. All right. He has been
since August.
He's been phenomenal. How many really good defenses has Carson Beck really picked apart? Like how many has he had to play one like this all year? No.
Can I rebuttal here real quick? Like at the same time, like how many teams have played a defense of this caliber? Okay. You just don't like Alabama might have the best defense in the country. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think with the edge rushers, their corner, their secondary, linebackers are getting better. Kevin Steele has them humming. I think like this defense is probably one top 3 in the country. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Alabama play top 10, top 15 defenses this year. They've done it. They played 2 of them. Right?
Okay.
And in one of those games, they lost, right, against Texas. It's a tough game. It's Jalen Milroe early. But then we saw Jalen Milroe turn the corner in a game against Texas A&M on the road against an elite defensive line, arguably the best pass rush in the country, if you're just looking at numbers. Just looking
And
at
talent.
numbers. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't think we're the best pass rush in the entire country. I'm just gonna throw that out there. But if you're just looking at stack numbers and tackles for loss, you could say that Texas A&M is elite up front. I mean, is Tennessee elite up front? Is Kentucky elite up front? Is Auburn's good up front? Are they elite up front? I think this number should be at 3.5. What you got it at 3.5 is the correct number. This is a reaction to the Iron Bowl game last week, which you have to throw out the door.
And which should have been like we took. Okay, I guess we took Bama and the points. We put our own money on Bama to cover, and we are not surprised one bit that that game came down to the wire.
Yeah. So, look, I'm gonna do something weird here, especially because it's only 5.5 points. I'm taking Bama to cover the 5.5, but I'll take Georgia to win. Georgia by a field goal. So
I will say, here, like I think that's an interesting play here because Bama has played in close games before, and they have won them. To be honest, in the one-score games, they have won, and Georgia has not really played in any one-score games.
the
Right?
Auburn
I mean,
game.
Auburn, but it was like once they got humming, it was all like Auburn did not have the juice to hang with them for 4 quarters. Bama does, without a doubt. I do think like now you saw Missouri, like Georgia made plays when they had to, but like in a one-score game, anything can happen. And I think that's interesting that you take, Bama plus 5.5. I do think if this game's close game, give me the edge to Bama, but I don't think it will be, and that's why I'm going to take Georgia minus 5.5.
Here's a counter, though, to my argument. Sure, Georgia hasn't played a defense like Alabama's defense, but Jalen Monroe, I don't know that he's played a secondary like this all year. That's the other argument, too. Like this secondary for Georgia is really, really good. They're
When
effective. And Bama,
we saw him run it up against secondaries that are pretty poor. Texas A&M, right?
mm-hmm,
Tennessee,
yep,
LSU, Kentucky.
exactly. So are they going to get the big play this game? I don't know that they are. I don't know that they are. Now, if Georgia dedicates a guy to stopping Jalen Monroe on the ground, right? Get maybe a heavier box, then maybe we could see something over the top, potentially. But I think Georgia's athletes at corner are better than the athletes that Bama has at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Except
not to say
Bond.
Bama doesn't have great receivers. I mean, Isaiah Bond is awesome. We know Isaiah 431. When Law, I happen to think Law is really special. I think he'll be really
They
good
need
for
to get
Alabama.
more involved. You saw like in this game, was it 2 years ago? Like you saw it was really the breakout of Jamison Williams, and it wasn't like everyone knew about him, but on a national level, it was like, okay, this guy needs to be a first round pick. Like he can tear his ACL and still be a top 11 pick in the draft. Like that's how like special he was. We saw in this game. I think Kendrick Law. I don't think he's him, right? But you mentioned it. Kendrick Law needs to be more involved and has to have touches because you need players run after the catch. You saw Jalen Waddle, a couple years ago in this game, just turn the corner against Georgia, which they they have not seen. That just doesn't happen against Georgia, right? Kendrick Law and Bond are two of those players that can actually do that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I think also, I mean, Georgia, what's at stake for them right now is, you know, there's a lot at stake. There's a win streak. There's an expectation, right? People have already chalked them up, to be in. So it's like,
Which we'll talk about this at the end of the video because we'll get into like what happens if Bama wins. Is Georgia still in? We'll talk about that when we get there. Once we're done breaking down the game itself. You're right. You're right though. Like, and you got Kirby versus Saban, and like you everyone feels like Saban or Kirby is taking that step up as of right now. Like Kirby is at the top of the game. Georgia's the top of college football, but Bama was that for 10 years. And if this changes, if this game flips here, like there will be real talk again. Like, hey, like Nick Saban's not dead. Bama's not dead. Like the dynasty's not over, and whatnot.
I think this is an absolute close game. I think it's going to be a great one.
Okay, in Bama's games where they've struggled, what happened? Was it explosive? To me, I see explosive plays and penalties.
Like they
and,
gave
and
up
like
explosive plays and they had penalties.
and key penalties. And I think that this Georgia offense is different than in years prior. I do think Carson Beck throws a beautiful deep ball. I think Lad McConkey, Robert Thomas are great deep threats. Brock Bowers, I haven't even gotten to him. He's a monster. You obviously got Marcus Roseman, Saint Jack Saint or whatever. I like him over the middle of the field as well as Dominic Lovett. And they're actually going to run the ball. Like we saw Auburn have success when Bama knew they could not pass the ball. Auburn still found explosive runs with the quarterback and with the running games. I don't think Beck is quite the running threat that you know Peyton Thorne is, even though that is what it is. I do think he's got good pocket mobility. He can extend plays for sure. But if you want to talk about like designing runs for Carson Beck, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's your best chance to win because you need him healthy and I like him throwing from the pocket. I like those running backs being able to get what they do. This O line is physical, really, really physical. And Bama right now is a little banged up in the middle of the interior of their defense on that D line, which definitely a little bit cause for concern. Yeah, and like in Milrow, I do think two things can be true here with him. I do think he has gotten better. You can see it substantially better. The team believes him. He believes himself. Tommy Reese has done an excellent job of scheming up plays for him, finding out what's comfortable with him, using him as a runner, as a deep thrower, letting him extend plays. The O-line has gotten better for sure, but I also think like it might be a little overinflated, right? I do think people, and I talked about it back when they lost to Texas and South Florida. They struggled with them. I think people jump ship too early and they just brought them on. Oh, the dynasty's over. Milrow's terrible. Whatever. They have no chance to compete in the SEC. And then you saw them get better and better. And I think people, immediately put them way back up high, even more than they were at the beginning of the year. It's like, oh, look at them. They're scoring 42 points against LSU, 49 against Kentucky, 34 against Tennessee. I do think it's a little bit overinflated as to where it actually is. I think it's a little bit lower than they are. And that's going to be the difference on a couple third downs. And actually, that's going to be the difference in 10 to 14 points, which I do see this game kind of being around. The backdoor cover is not out of consideration. I'm absolutely worried about that. But I do think Georgia in the second half, they can lean on you, right? They can control this football game. And if on third down, they are excellent. They are excellent on third down. And Bama is good, but not great on third down. And I think Georgia, that's going to be their margin of victory. Getting off the field and then being able to extend drives, putting this defense. We've seen it like against these Bama, and Georgia has been vulnerable through the air, through the explosive passing play. And obviously Bama's been known for that this year with Milrow's arm and the deep threats they do have. But I think Georgia has it in this game. I think Georgia will do that and expose that part of Kevin Steele's defense there. Wait, real quick, can we go back to is there a coaching edge here for either team? And is there a talent
Nope.
edge? We'll get into coaching first. Is there a talent and coaching edge?
There's not a talent or coaching edge, I think.
Is it quarterback? Why is this line 5.5 then?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I think it should be within a field goal, but that's just me.
To me, I do think the line was inflated. I do think that's why I took it at 3.5.
It's the outcomes of the game. There's not a coaching difference. There's not a talent difference, right? It's outcomes. This line is outcome oriented.
You're saying like if Georgia wins, they can pull away from Bama, but Bama can't really pull away from Georgia. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll agree with that.
Yeah, because their edges, there is a quarterback edge here, right? Beck.
With Beck's arm is better than Milrose, I think, just with what he's been able to do with it. No, Milrow has a better arm, quote unquote, where he can get the ball down the field, but so can Carson Beck. Carson Beck just does everything right at the quarterback spot. And Jalen Monroe, if things go wrong, he can make them right with his legs.
I think Milrow gives you more of a headache. Like you said, I think Beck is a better quarterback, though. I don't want to confuse those two things, but if that makes sense to our viewers.
I agree with that. I think Carson Beck is playing himself into potential top 15 draft pick.
For sure. Everyone's already assuming, like, what's Georgia going to do next year in the quarterback position?
Yep.
Which is crazy. At the beginning of the year, everyone's like, oh, Beck, is he the guy? Whatever, yada, yada. Real quick here, in terms of scenarios, right? Does Bama, do they get if they win, are they in? Is that as simple as that?
Nope.
I think that's the right answer. And I think that Bama fans and people on Twitter, like in SEC people, especially like you have to come to the realization that you might get left out this year. You might get left
I
out this
think
year.
it's more than likely you get left out this year if you're a Bama fan, even if you win.
And you know what I
Not
point
not
back
because
to?
they shouldn't, not because they shouldn't be in. I'm just saying we see where this committee values this Bama team. We see where this committee values that Oregon team. They're both going to have top 3 wins, and Oregon's only loss is redeemed, essentially.
Yeah, which is crazy. I just think the argument here is like this Georgia win is weighted a lot more than any other win, right? It has to be. It has to be, right? Even though the line's only 5.5, it started at 3.5. This Georgia win is the best, and it's pretty not even close. Texas beating Bama would probably be another very good win, but it's also early in the season. The thing here is I point back to is the SEC struggled in not a conference schedule. They struggled. Is Ole Miss over Tulane was probably their best win
Uh,
over a backup quarterback. Kentucky
Ole
over
Miss
Louisville,
is no
fine. Kentucky over
Ole Miss
Louisville.
is
No, I'm saying like, I'm sorry. Did I say Ole Miss? I'm at the SEC in general. Their out of conference schedule.
their best
They're
win was probably Kentucky's win against Louisville.
yeah, and that just happened and probably saved Bama. Oh my god, which could point to them. The thing is, the rest of the top 25 is you have quality wins. Like, is Tennessee still rated? And like,
Which is
Ole
wild,
Miss,
but we don't have to
and
talk about it.
like all these other LSU's up there. All these other SEC teams are like Missouri. There's six. There's 6 teams in the SEC up there, and they're pretty high up there. And they're giving Georgia and Bama quality wins, except in the Pac-12 is just, and you look at Oregon's wins, it's just, I don't know, is it Oregon State is the only ranked win they have? So
Yeah,
like
because
that's what's
Utah,
weird is like
UCLA have both fallen off the board.
that's why I go back to the
Didn't
fact of like
play Oregon. Didn't play Arizona.
why can you keep Oregon where they are but drop everybody else in the Pac-12 and move everyone else in the SEC and not move Bama's wins up? So like that's why like the whole committee this year has been very confusing. And I
Yeah,
think they've set themselves up. And I know that probably doesn't work like this, but if they were smart and if they just realized, no one really cares about the rankings throughout the year, everyone cares about the last Final Four. Like if they set themselves and if they want to set themselves up for the least amount of headache, they could have done it a little bit differently, But I do think you're right though. I think Bama, it's not as easy as that. I think both these teams can make it. If Bama wins and Georgia loses closely, I think they can still make it. There's still a case for them. I do think there's a scenario here where both teams do get left out, which is crazy. Absolutely crazy. And these might be the 2 best teams in the country. Talent wise, coaching wise, eye test. Like these might be the 2 best teams in the country. And yet they'd both be left out, which is crazy. I don't know. I don't know how else to put it.
well, let's move on. Let's talk about ACC. Let's talk about Florida State. Let's talk about Louisville. Uh, these are 2 quarterbacks that are just okay. These are 2 quarterbacks that are just okay. This line is 2.5. If Jordan Travis is playing this game, what is the line? That is the question. Is
It's
that a
probably
touchdown?
closer to it. It's closer to a touchdown. And if it's probably closer to a touchdown, maybe even a little bit. Yeah, probably 7.5 is too much. Probably 6.5.
Yeah. So, and look, Louisville coming off an absolute brutal loss against Kentucky where you had 4 turnovers, right? And then Florida State coming off a win against Florida where Florida kind of just handed them the win. They didn't want to play. They didn't want to be there.
Yeah, I don't know who looked worse. Was it Florida State in a win or Louisville in a loss? I really don't.
Yeah.
It was a tough weekend for the ACC.
Yeah, definitely. And but Tater Rodmaker, I mean, I think they're gonna have to rely heavily on the ground game. Right. We saw Kentucky kind of Ray Davis, he didn't have a particularly amazing game. It kind of came down to
Couple
Devin Leary being the below average quarterback that he is, becoming above average for one game.
and for Rodemaker, like that's not too high of an expectation. He doesn't have to go and beat Jaden Daniels.
He's got
I mean,
better
I don't.
weapons than Devin Leary does over there.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, yeah, and I trust Norvell to come up with a scheme to get Keon Coleman to run the ball with Benson, heavy dose of Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell creatively. Like It's not going to be all on Rodemaker. It's going to be put on him. He's got to make plays and execute, but like he has help. He has a lot of help.
Now, speaking of coming up with plays, you got a
Yep.
guy on the other sideline by the name of Jeff Brom that loves scoring points, even against good defenses. I mean, look,
Especially against good
Louisville,
defenses.
yeah, Duke, they won what, 23-3 or 23-0. They didn't look particularly amazing in that game. But you know what Jeff Brom did? He took the pedal off the metal. So I think like Jeff Brom, if he needs to score points, he will find a way to score points. They just didn't score enough points last week. And the NC State game, right? That was a weird game. It was Thursday or Friday night. It's on the road. And it just felt like NC State's defense, also by the end of the season, we have seen that that is a really, really, really talented defense that they got over there. Dave Thorne and his boys winning 9 games. And honestly, if NC State had won that game against Louisville, like they probably should have, it'd be them in this game. And chances are NC State might be favored in this game with Jordan Travis out. But needless to say, I have a tough time picking this game. I'll let you go first.
Well, thank you for that. Uh, I don't know. I think if you're Louisville here, if you're a Louisville fan, you don't understand exactly what Jeff Brom does to you throughout a 12 game, 13 game season. You are going to have some games where you are just extremely frustrated. You're like, how do we lose this game? What happened to Louisville? Pitt, Kentucky, right? You talk about that. Um, okay, I think my camera's freezing here. Let me get back to it. Sorry about that. But he also gets up for these big games. We saw it at Purdue where they just elevated their roster and that offense, and they leaned onto key players and schemed up beautiful passes for them or runs or whatever it was. And they always got up for big games. I think this is another one of those. I do think the worst thing to happen for Florida State last week was that Louisville lost and did not play well, because that means that they are due for a Jeff Brom special, right? I do think in terms of quarterback edge, I have to give it to Plummer just because of the experience. I'd say it reluctantly because I think Plummer can, make the game-winning drive for sure, but I also think he can like put you in
He
a
can
position where
lose
he
you a
needs a
ball game
game-winning drive.
for sure.
Exactly. And you saw that in the last, like it wasn't all on him, but they had 2 fumbles, a fourth down misconversion, and then another interception, and all in that second half against Kentucky. And that's how you lose football games, right? But the interesting part here, and I want to talk about both teams here, both coaches. You look around the ACC, right? You had a down year with Clemson. You had a North Carolina didn't live up to expectations. You look at teams that had success in the top half of the rankings in the ACC. It was teams that are like really good and coaches that are really good in game. And I think those coaches made up the margins for their talent, because everyone in the ACC kind of blends together, with the exception of Clemson and Florida State typically. But like this year, Florida State obviously ran the table and they were pretty successful and pretty superior, dominant in a lot of games, right? That elevate them. Clemson was down. I think in-game coaching, that's why you saw Louisville, you saw Dave Dorn and NC State, Georgia Tech even, Brent Pry and Virginia Tech, and then obviously Duke and Mike Elko. I think that was really interesting this year. And I want to credit both these rosters, both these coaches, for getting the most out of their rosters. You know what I mean?
I agree. So for that reason, I don't think there's a huge coaching edge here at all on either
I
side.
don't.
But I do think that I think there's a talent edge here.
I do. Real quick, I never get my pick. I'm a pick before you just say, because you asked me to. I'm gonna take Louisville plus 2.5, and I'll take them to win. I'll explain why after, but I'll let you go.
See, a lot of my picking Louisville is dependent on Jamari Thrash being super healthy. And he really hasn't been the last couple of weeks. Feels like they're trotting out like a sack of potatoes out there. And he's doing everything he can, but it's been a lot of Kevin Coleman. It's been a lot of Garendo. It's been a lot of Jawar Jordan. I'm going to take the talent edge here. I'm going to take the team that has more to play for. And give me the guy who's, look, Tate Rodemaker. He kind of settled in that second half there. He struggled in the first half for sure. And you know what Mike Norvell said? Hey, we're gonna slow it down. We're gonna run the football. We're gonna run it well. That's what Trey Benson is a really good running back. And we're just gonna play good defense. That's exactly what they did. So give me Florida State minus 2.5. It's all fade here.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. I think that's probably a pretty logical pick. I do like the Tate Martell. He struggled early, obviously. The moment was a little too big for him in the swamp in that first half. The game moving too fast. You mentioned that they slowed it down for him. They did a really good job of that. And I think you get another week of game prep. Hey, like Tate Ramaker, like now you're settled in, got hit a couple times. You can really get after it this week in practice. And you beat Florida, and now you got one game season to make the playoffs. And then you got a month to prepare for whoever you got to play. Anything can happen there. I just think the reason why I'm taking Louisville here, and real quick about Jamari Trash, I do think he is healthier and he's getting healthier. I think he was kind of trending down in targets and completions. And last week he was up to 6 completions, more target. Like to me, that tells me that your staff believes you're healthier and getting healthier. And I hope that they're building him up back to this game here. But yeah, I think Plummer makes some plays. I think Brahms games them open. I think they can run the football a little bit and slow down this pass rush. Florida State's guys, part of what helped them get back in the game was just Florida's incompetent offensive line, right? And like Verse and Peyton and all those guys up front, like really got after him, Max Brown there. And I think Plummer, being a little bit more veteran than Brown, right, can make some protection checks or hot key things and do things. And Brown can scheme up some good things to stop that pass rush. And that's why I give the edge here to Louisville. But I do think like all of a sudden, and I hate that Jordan Travis is not playing because I love to see him in big games. I would love to see him go dominate Louisville, yada, yada. But I think this is a really, really intriguing game now because I think the talent roster mentioned is a little bit higher on Florida State, but I think quarterback edge here, you got to give to Louisville. And I think that has to make a difference. And that's why this line is so low. Yeah, I just think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating all around.
Let's talk Big Ten. You're a Big Ten guy. You're a Big Ten West guy. The Big Ten West average margin of defeat, I think, is over 20 points since its inception, and it has never won.
It was an LJ Scott reach over the goal line away from getting a win. Okay. And that was Iowa that year. And that was actually a really talented Iowa team. That is not this year's team. This team is hurt, right? This team is banged up. This team cannot move the ball offensively. This team is Deacon Hill, a quarterback who has been playing a little bit better. He's been playing a little bit better. He's still terrible. He's still terrible against pretty average defenses. And yeah, Michigan, the line is at 22.5 or 22 right now. I think it's a little bit higher. By the time you'll probably see this video. It is like that because you can't put it any higher than that. And like Michigan, the also scary part of here is Michigan could just throttle down. They go up 3 scores. Go up 3 touchdowns and just milk the clock. The thing is, I do think that they are good enough offensively to where they can just milk the clock and score points. That's why I'm going to take Michigan minus 22. Give me whatever. I just think I cannot justify picking Iowa to cover in this game. I try to come up with explanations. I get it that they're pretty far out there, but I just cannot justify like logically picking them over Michigan to cover this game.
Yeah, give me Michigan minus 22. What is the total for this game?
I believe it's 33.5 or 35.5. I'm sorry. 35.5.
35.5. So then what's the implied score here? Minus 22, right? So
it's 28-7 around there, just about.
I mean, I know like Iowa team totals. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the team total, I think for Iowa's at 6.5 right now, right? Can Michigan put up 28 points on this Iowa team? Yes. It is a different athlete on the field that they're playing. Penn State put up 31, right?
And that was with a healthier Iowa defense.
Yes.
I get it. That was the whiteout. And that was the whiteout.
Zinter injury, right, for Michigan hurts on the offensive line. I don't think it matters. They're so deep on the offensive line.
If there's one spot you can attack Iowa, it's up the middle. Yeah. I think, in my opinion, this year, This year is the exception, right? You think way back to like the summer, they had their D lineman, the best D lineman, interior guy, suspended gambling. Like he would be a big piece in the middle there. They've tried to replace him. They've been banged up too up front. No, not this year.
Yeah, no, it's Michigan 35-0. 28-3, 24-0, 27-3. These are all scores that seem very reasonable and all cover.
And do you think there's a Jim Harbaugh effect here? Nobody's talking about that, by the way. Jim
Yeah,
Harbaugh's actually back on the
he's
sideline.
back.
And
He's
I
back.
that has to be something, right? For Michigan. I think
Yeah.
Sherman Moore did fine. And then they used part of that, as motivation and fuel. And obviously that helped a little bit. Is there a letdown spot here, though? I'm not saying Iowa wins, but we play it. The line's so big here. We got to think about something to, what happens if this is a fourth quarter game? Like what happens to lead up to that, if that makes sense?
Well, JJ McCarthy's gets taken up in a helicopter because his entire body's snapped in half. He's unable to play. Then their backup quarterback from Michigan, his arm falls off because he has scurvy or something. And then their third string quarterback, his leg needs to get snapped off by a bear at halftime because he decided to go take a pee out in the woods and a bear attacked him. And then their fourth string quarterback, dude, this is going to be, there's no scenario where I could see Michigan not winning this game by double-digit points.
I think the only scenario here is you have a mega letdown spot in Michigan. Because the only game you are penciling in right now in conference championship play is this game. Everyone, and you're putting it in pen. You are pretty much putting it in pen. After a big Ohio State game, you get back Jim Harbaugh, you think everything's okay, and all of a sudden Iowa pulls an Iowa, and they have muff punts from Michigan. They have turnovers. Iowa gets a special teams touchdown and things like that. That creates these short fields, explosive plays. Deacon Hill hits a guy deep, somehow actually connects to him. Is it likely? No. The thing here is, if you're Michigan, and think about it, like if you want to beat Georgia, if you want to beat Oregon or Florida State or whoever you're going to play in round one, you have to rely on JJ McCarthy. I think. Not rely, but he has to make plays for you. And I do think that this staff, right, you don't want to get him hurt. You don't want to trot him out there and throw the ball when he shouldn't have to. But I do think there's some value here. If you're Michigan, you don't care about covering. You don't care about style points. You want to win and be healthy. That's all you need. Let JJ McCarthy, let it fly. And that's where Iowa can take advantage of tip passes, interceptions, strip sacks, weird things that happen. Whenever you put the ball in the air against Iowa, weird shit happens. Okay, I know. I'm a Minnesota fan. I know all about it, including when you kick a ball in the air and a punt, right? But like that, to me, that's where it's like, okay, if Michigan decides, hey, we don't want to cover today, like if this is Penn State, without a doubt. I'm hammering Penn State because Jane Franklin wants to cover. But I do think Jim Harbaugh doesn't give a shit about covering. He wants his team to be ready and prepared. And I think Iowa's because they have a good defense, right? I think this is a good spot for you to be able to, hey, let's test our offense. Let's test our line, make sure everybody's ready. Use it. I'd say like preseason, but like let's try stuff. Let's make sure that we're humming. We didn't need the quarterback against Penn State. We lean on our running game against Ohio State. We had some turnovers help us there. Let's actually play complementary football on offense. Is that crazy?
I mean, the reality is I just think that the best team in the Big Ten East is more than 3 touchdowns better than the best team in the Big Ten West. I get it's a letdown spot. Sure, they got a lot more to play for, whatever. Jim Harbaugh's first game back, even if they run the ball, even if they elect to run the ball every single play in the second half, they did that they didn't do that exactly against Ohio State, but they ran the ball a ton against Ohio State in the second half. And they did that exact same thing against Penn State. And in both of those games, they were able to cover shorter spreads, same principle.
Yeah, I do think you have a good point there. And to be honest, like, I don't want to talk about comparisons here, but like, Michigan moved the football against Ohio State, and Ohio State's got a damn good defense, right? Minnesota played both those teams, Iowa and Ohio State, and Michigan, as a matter of fact. They did not move the ball at all against Michigan or Ohio State. And they, I thought, moved the ball pretty damn well in Iowa City in weird wind conditions, right? With Ethan Callahan as a quarterback. I do think Michigan here can put up 42 points if they want to. If they really want to. I think there's value in taking the over. But at the same
42
time,
to
like
3.
it's if this was played on Madden, like if and like they didn't care about staying healthy or whatever, if injuries were turned off, like Michigan, I would take the over without a doubt. But yeah. And did you see that the thing about Iowa's team total? Half, 1.5, or on each
Yeah,
half
it's
being
like
0.5. It's
yeah.
juiced to the under too. What's your thoughts on that? Like, is there any value in just sprinkle a little bit? Okay, let's have
No.
fun. Let's hope Iowa scores here. Turnover,
No.
blocked punt. Like something has to happen where Iowa has a chance to score.
I'm I cannot justify taking a bet where a team total is at a half of a point. Believe me, and I've taken team totals at like 9.5, like first half team totals at 9.5. I've live bet second half totals that are like single digits. I believe me, I've done that. A half a point is where I draw the line.
I don't think you bet it. I don't think you bet it.
No, why? Why would anyone and people who are think they're sharp, they're like, look, even if it wins, right? Say you bet the under, right? You're like, oh, that was sharp. Oh, I knew I was gonna shut him out. Like,
No, you didn't.
no, you didn't. Like, that is I think that's crazy. Like normally like a shutout, like against teams like this, you're gonna have better odds, right? Like people are betting on that, like under to hit. So you're not getting value on the under, right? And if you take the over and then the under hits, how can you justify why you took that over? Oh, because
Well,
everyone else is taking the under. You saw value. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I guess. I don't know.
the thing here is you're predicting unpredictable unpredictable plays, turnovers, bounce a ball, field position. Like you cannot predict those things. You don't have you can have a gut feeling, sure, but like that's what you're predicting. If Michigan plays this game straight up, if that's the if you're betting on, Iowa will not move the ball 50 yards and kick a field goal. They won't. Probably not. The thing is another way, like if Michigan turns the ball over, it matters where they turn the ball over, right? If it's in Iowa's red zone, then it doesn't matter. Iowa still has to go the length of the field. If it's in their own end or if it's big return or whatever happens, like you don't know. Real quick here, I do want to ask you: is there a coaching edge? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I wanted to ask you about
hey,
That's what I know.
Phil Parker. That's a coaching
Yeah,
edge right there.
yeah, and if he, yeah, with all
What
things
are you
happening
trying to talk? What are you trying to talk yourself into right now?
I know. I'm just saying, but if Michigan loses somehow Michigan
I love how you
loses,
say Michigan loses and not Iowa
it's not
wins,
Iowa
right?
wins because I
If
know Iowa
somehow
football.
Michigan loses, because Iowa doesn't win games, they just
Just
neglect losing.
okay. If that happens, Michigan has to be out, right? You cannot justify an Iowa loss. I was
Yeah.
ranked in the top 20. They're ranked in the top 20, by the way. You can like there in this year, there are too many good teams. Would you put
Here's
in
the
Ohio
thing.
State above Michigan? Would you
Here's
put
the
in
thing.
above Ohio State above Michigan if Michigan loses?
I
That's
don't
what
know
it comes
how
down.
many. The reason why I think Iowa is ranked where I don't know. I don't know why they ranked where they are. To be
They're
honest,
10-2. They're 10-2 in a Power Five conference in a Group of Five division.
I know zero substantial wins unless you're counting Iowa State as a
Iowa State,
substantial win. There's a team that
and they're
went
only
seven and
lost.
five.
They're only lost to a team that they like probably shouldn't have lost to was Minnesota, and that was a fluky end of game scenario. Whatever.
No, but like
And
Liberty,
Minnesota's going bowling.
Liberty has not lost a game at all this year. Does that justify a top 20 ranking?
No. If Liberty was put in the Big Ten West, they would probably be 9-3. Probably 7-5, 9-3, depending on their crossovers. The thing
Yeah.
here is, yeah, if the Iowa, if they want to do a favor for the committee and they want to just beat Michigan, that would make the committee's job, I think, a lot easier.
Oh yeah, because then it's Well,
then basically
it's not
everybody gets
necessarily
in.
easy because if Michigan loses, but then Georgia wins, and well, actually,
No, because then you're put in because then Wash either the Pac-12 winners in, right? And then Ohio State just or Texas just jumps. You're still gonna fight Texas Ohio State. But the thing is here, I would love not only for chaos to ensue, but for a Big Ten West, the final year in the Swan Song, the Big Ten West, wouldn't that be funny? And that's exactly what Kirk Ferentz said. He said, "Wouldn't it be funny if they won?" Can you imagine? Can you
imagine your,
imagine?
but also imagine your coach saying, "Wouldn't it be funny if we won this game?"
What are you doing in practice this week if you're Iowa? Are you prepping for your bowl game? Are the coaches out recruiting? Or are you just like,
You only
how do you
practice
actually
punt, and you have people just run gunner constantly and jump on balls. You have them study film on like the bounces of balls. How do you
yeah.
optimize fumbles, right? How
And
do you get someone to fumble a punt? You
hey,
know?
D-line, here's what we're doing all week. You are working on tipped passes. Anytime JJ McCarthy goes like this,
Yeah.
everybody straight up.
Hands up
Getting
right
passing
here.
passing windows. Weird shit has to happen. The thing is like in Lucas Oil, weird shit doesn't really happen. Kind most part. To be honest, the Big Ten championship games have kind of not been competitive for a while. I can only think of a couple games since they
That's what
went
I'm
to just.
saying, dude. Like the margin of victory on average is like 20 points in this game
And obviously
historically.
that'll change next year, of course. But yeah, I don't see it for Iowa. I think -22. If you want to take a bet in this game, take -22. Don't take the over 0.5 or the under 0.5 team totals. And I think we'll talk about that later, won't we?
Yeah, I've also heard people there's like trying to figure out who I was listening to, or maybe I saw on Twitter. Someone was like, "Here's a bet for the Iowa Michigan game. You're gonna take Iowa team total under, and you're gonna take Michigan team total over." And I'm like, "So the spread? So you're saying that
Yeah.
Michigan will cover the spread? Is what you're saying?"
What is
Some
what's the team
sharps
total? Is it 6.5 or is it
six and a
7
half.
for I?
I don't know
Jesus
what
Christ.
Michigan's team total is at. I can go ahead and check that
It's
though right
probably
now.
28.5.
But I'm like, just just take the spread. Like just
Don't
take the spread. Like you're
agree.
just basically at that point, like you're giving extra vig to the book then because you're taking two bets at -110 instead of like just one bet at -110. Like you're
Now if
losing.
you want to
That's a great way to lose money, by the way, for you listeners out
and
there.
what happens if Iowa gets 2 touchdowns and then Michigan scores, 5 touchdowns? Like or what would it be 6 touchdowns? Like it
Yeah,
just like then you're or Iowa scores 8 touchdown and Michigan's like the spread is the way to go here. Don't get too fancy here.
Iowa's team total is at 6.5. Michigan's team total is at 28.5. So just like that, why would you take that? Just take the spread, lads. All right. Let's shoot over to the American. Tulane versus SMU. Tulane at home, by the way, for this game in New Orleans, in Yeoman Stadium. Kevin Jennings is the quarterback for SMU, not Preston Stone. Kevin Jennings. Preston Stone, for whatever reason, was in that game when they were up 35 points or whatever. Granted, it was early third quarter, I believe, when he got hurt. He's out. Michael Pratt playing for Tulane. That Tulane defense has been very good. Very, very, very good. And they continue to roll. They beat UTSA. The margins of these victories aren't necessarily all that impressive. Now, the UTSA game I thought was pretty impressive. What they did to shut down Frank Harris there and Kavorian Barnes and those boys there. But I don't know, man. I don't know. What are you feeling for this game?
And to be honest, I do lean on Tulane. I think it could be a close game. I do like Tulane here. I think they're playing really good football. I think SMU is a different team without Preston Stone. Some people I've certain like are like Preston Stone's kind of an average quarterback. No, I think he's a legit difference maker in this offense. And I think relying against a Tulane defense like it is right now, playing like it is, you would love your starting quarterback in this game. Obviously, it's not a bold take or crazy insight for you, but don't overthink it. I think that actually matters. Kevin Jennings, sure, right? I believe the staff trusts him. I know he'll be ready to play, but it's a different animal. against Navy, against your own team in practice, when Tulane can actually hit you and get after you and affect you and show different stunts and blitz and all the other things that Tulane's actually done a really good job of this year. They made 50-year, 6-year Frank Harris look pretty pedestrian in that first half. And I think they do that again this year. And Michael Pratt, he continues to be one of the more underrated players in college football at the quarterback position for sure. And I was a guy I picked against him. I picked UTSA last week. I was just really impressed with Tulane. They're getting healthier. Right, they're at home. That means a neutral site doesn't pick them without Preston Stone. That to me, that is crazy. And I get the infatuation with SMU, and they've done a great job. Brett Lashley has the boys humming for the ACC, but I'm gonna go Michael Pratt, Willie Fritz, and Tulane here. I'll take the 3.5 as well.
Okay. Look,
You don't like that, do you?
all I'm saying, right, is Rhett Lashley comes from that Hugh Freeze tree, right, where you can elevate quarterbacks, especially mobile ones.
Okay.
Now, I don't think SMU's defense is overly amazing, right? And we saw that against Memphis, but Memphis, in my opinion, is the best offensive football team in the American.
Yeah.
You know,
Hannigan's a monster.
they're a
Watson.
victim. They're a victim of a horrible defense. Tulane, I think he's a very good defense. They're pretty good up front. What SMU also has is a run game that they can rely on, I think, consistently, even against a team's front seven like Tulane's that they have there. I mean, Tulane was able to shut down Ole Miss's running a game. Now, granted, was Judkins healthy that game? No. So, but I happen to believe that if Preston Stone was playing in this game, that the line SMU would be favored, even on the road. I know it sounds crazy. I really like Michael Pratt a lot, but I've been reading about Kevin Jennings, watched his highlights, hearing what these camps are saying about him. I kind of like Kevin Jennings, and I like Rhett Lashley. Love Willie Fritz, but I really like Rhett Lashley. Give me SMU plus 3.5. Give me SMU to win straight up. And I know I've been saying, hey, this SMU team, right? Week after week, I've said this SMU team hasn't really played a whole lot of good teams, right? This year, they really haven't. They played Oklahoma. They kind of got bullied in that game. They played Memphis, who's a pretty good team. They were able to do just enough offensively. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and tell you I feel great about this. Give me the Mustangs plus 3.5 and win straight up.
Yeah, I don't think that's crazy at all. I see where you're coming from. You bring up a great point, Rhett Lashley. We saw what a Hugh Freeze scheme can do for you in a big time game.
Brett Lashley was there. Was he the quarterback coach or the offensive coordinator for Nick Marshall? Back in Arkansas State when Arkansas State won like 9 games with the.
He's a great coach. And a great offensive mind. I do like Lashley, and he's put together a really talented team for SMU and for the American standards. I think Tulane's good though. I think Tulane's really good. Mekhi Hughes is a baller as a running back there, freshman, 1,200 yards on the year. They've really leaned on him in games where they've had success, especially down the stretch. I think they do that this game as well. You keep the ball away from SMU. You make every possession matter for Kevin Jennings, and in that way, like people like Michael Pratt's a stud too. I love Michael Pratt.
Michael Pratt is a good college quarterback.
Dude, the rumor here is he's not going to go in the portal. He's going to go to the NFL.
I don't know. I love the noise. You know, I'm sure that's Michael Pratt's camp, you know, trying to stir up like these NFL scouts, oh, Michael Pratt. Let's go. Let's get some film on this guy. Let's see what he's got. I don't know. I think some of that stuff, I don't know how much stock I actually put into it. What I do know is like SMU's run defense, they've been exposed at times, but also at the same time, Blake Watson, they held him into check pretty decently against like when they played Memphis. So, if you can hold Blake Watson in check, then you better button my bottom dollar that they can also shut down this Tulane running attack. And then you're asking Michael Pratt, who, by the way, I don't have the stats in front of me. I don't know that Michael Pratt's completion percentage is over 60% on the year. It might be pretty close.
Let me check that here.
No, it's over. It's over. But I'm at it right now. But in big games, look, what was he, 9 for 21 last week?
Nine for 22, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions though. But they got up early on UTSA. They leaned on Hughes and they kind of just got it through. Every other game, he's been really good in conference play, I think. And I don't know. I think he's gonna show. I remember last year against USC, like this team is like in the middle, the blimp in the middle. I was really impressed with how they played against Ole Miss. That feels like forever ago. They didn't have Michael Pratt. Middle of the season, they kind of were pretty bumpy in the road, I thought, like against some kind of meh American teams. And now I think they're really hitting their stride. It's in end of November and into December conference championship week.
I mean, look, it was 3 weeks ago that Tulane was in a dogfight with Tulsa. It was 4 weeks ago that they were in a dogfight with East Carolina. Look, and FAU honestly didn't make it look easy for them either. So it wasn't really to the second half that they kind of pulled away. And then in the fourth quarter, they kind of, I guess, they had the luxury of being able to take the gas off the pedal. But I don't think you have that luxury against SMU. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think with Preston Stone, it's a much different football game. Or at least, in my opinion, the outlook is much different. I think Kevin Jennings can absolutely win this football game. I think it's 3.5 for a reason. At neutral site, it's a pick 'em. So he can obviously go in there and get a win. I do think that hurts though. Like Tulane against more than anybody else, like you're still gonna have to score, and their defense is really good. I think they're humming. Willie Fritz came back to do this to win a championship game. Go to another New Year's Six bowl game. I don't know. It'll be a great game. It's gonna be a great game, and it sucks that SMU's leaving next year, and Willie Fritz might be out the door as well. So enjoy it, cherish it if you're the American here. Like this is gonna be a really good conference championship.
Go to the Mountain West. A crazy year in the Mountain West has ultimately led to Boise State being favored by 2.5 on the road. Well, basically, is that in Unity Stadium?
It's in Vegas.
I know it's in Vegas, but is in their stadium?
Oh,
Not sure. But
I thought it was at
either way.
Let me double check that.
Either way, I mean, San Jose State fans are sitting this one out.
Real quick, it is at Allegiant. It is in the Las Vegas Raiders arena. It's not because it's at UNLV. It's neutral site technically.
Yeah, so still feels like kind of a home game there. I'm pretty sure UNLV plays at Allegiant. I'm pretty sure. I'm like 95% sure. Either way,
I'll check it out. You keep talking. I'll check it out.
Either way, I mean, Boise State's been humming. They don't even have a head coach. Spencer Danielson, guys who Boise State fans wanted fired just weeks ago, gets promoted to the interim head coach position, and they have done nothing but blow teams out since he has taken over. They've done nothing but blow teams out. Even Air Force, it probably should have been an uglier game. Taylor Green threw a red zone interception there. I am really in love with the way the Boise State's playing, but you know what I'm also in love with? The way this UNLV team has played all year. Granted, they lost the game next San Jose State, a team whom Boise State beat earlier in the year. I do think UNLV is playing good football, and that front seven is good. However, they got exposed. Kerry Robinson had a day against that UNLV front seven. A front seven that I've been talking a lot of good things about all year. And Boise State's got some big boys up front there. They got some man meat. And also Taylor Green in that backfield. And a healthy Ashton Janty and a healthy George Alani. On the road, I've kind of been chalking it up this whole time. But give me Boise State minus 2.5 here. Sorry, Rebs. I've loved you all year. I've respected you all year. I've taken you in every single game this year. But I will be taking the Boise State Broncos minus 2.5 to win the Mountain West with an interim head coach. I
What
love
do you
that.
do? I mean, we love the Mountain West. We
What do you
love
do? Like, do you have to hire Spencer Danielson? I don't think
You
staff
don't
wants
have to.
to.
Not a place like Boise State. If you're, I don't know, if you're another Mountain West
UNLV.
school, I don't want to say that to our UNLV fans. But if you okay, Boise State, you have the resources. You're gonna program where you can go out and hire somebody else if you do feel that's the right call. I think now is the time to jump ship on Boise State and Barry Odom. You mentioned like I'm gonna go minus two and a
Wow.
half here. I picked Boise State a couple times here this year, but UNLV has just been such a wagon, right? For us at least. And obviously they
Like, got
kind of
rocked last week.
they've kind of I was about to say they're struggled down the stretch here. And Barry Odom's gotten everything he could have gotten out of this roster. I do think there is a little talent gap here, a little edge to Boise State for sure. Coaching, I do probably trust Barry Odom. And you see, yeah. I just think Taylor Green put it together last week. He played well early. I don't know. I think Janty, the freshman, and Holani as well. Like that's a 1-2 punch you love. Their defense is playing well,
One, two,
better.
three punch with Taylor Green.
That's yeah. Good point. Good point.
He's back, boys. Taylor Green's back.
He never left.
You never
I
left.
I will say Boise State though. I mean they've been really dominant in Mountain West, but they've only won one. They're 1-3 in their last four Mountain West championships. Right? He lost to Fresno State last year. Jake Hayner, fine. He was Jake Hayner, whatever. Lost to Nick Starkel 2 years before that, and then you lost to Fresno State in back in 2018. The only wins against Hawaii, and like peace and love to Hawaii, but there's a significant gap there, talent wise, and probably coaching as well. I believe that was wasn't that what's his name? Was that Auburn? Brian Harson back in that would have been Brian
Yeah.
Harson. Um, just crazy. But yeah, I'm gonna go Boise State here.
Yeah. I mean,
White though is a
uh,
monster.
I love it. But
White
hey, the
is
last time we took the 2.5 point favorite in a Mountain West game, we got killed. And that was UNLV
yeah.
last week. But then again, that was like one of those games where we said like San Jose State is humming. Like, let's pick it and just leave it
Yep.
and watch the game and just know we're probably gonna lose. So in this
But
scenario, I
even
actually feel pretty good about this. I get that it's on the road. I still feel pretty good about this. I like Taylor Green a lot. I always have. Struggled at times, but when there's a talent gap and Taylor Green is in the football game, you better believe that that dude can make plays.
the thing is here is UNLV has also been playing good football. Kind of. I mean, they ran into a buzzsaw. They ran into an absolute buzzsaw. It's tough, man. It's just hard. I think it just hurts me to pay against Barry Odom in UNLV because they've been an awesome story this year in college football. But 7-5 Boise State and 7-5 San Jose State. Two
Yeah.
teams
Well,
that are 6-2 in conference. It's crazy.
here's the thing is I actually think this line should be higher, and I think it would be if Eric McAllister was playing for Boise State and he wasn't opting to sit out. You know, actually, I mean, so this doesn't count as like a redshirt game, right? Or
Yeah, he could be back if he wants to, but it's also sent him like
well, no, he wants to transfer, so he's probably not going to
yeah,
play this game.
he's not gonna get a red shirt anyways. He's already played in 5 games this year.
Yeah.
Or more than
So
that.
yeah, I was just thinking about that. That was dumb. But yeah, I think this is kind of a discount. I think Boise State's offense can still operate without him because I think they can just run the ball. And I know UNLV's front seven is good, but guess what? Kerry Robinson absolutely dogged on you guys. Dogged on you guys, man. Now, look, I can't wait to look. Say Boise State wins this game, right? UNLV walks into the offseason with a 9-4 record. Okay. Can't wait for them to play a lower tier SEC team, Big Ten West team that made a bowl game, and I can't wait for them to win that. I really can't.
Oh yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
pumped. I'm pumped. But yeah, give me the Broncos -2.5 for a Spencer Danielson led Boise State Broncos win. Andy, Andy's probably. I'd be pissed if I was in right now because he's like, gosh, I mean,
What do
if
you
you
want?
just
But
if you now
he'll
the
get a good
standard at
job
Boise State is
somewhere.
high. The standard at Boise State is yeah, sure you could go 8-5, win the Mountain West, but the standard like 10 wins is the standard there, right? Chris
But
Peterson set a standard there. Even Brian Harson, was like he had to get a good record there as well, you know. So,
what
but
what
yeah,
do you
we'll
want? What
see.
do you?
What did you
Yeah, I was like, what do you want him? What do you want Danielson to do other than go 3-0 and in your
say?
three
And win the
biggest
Mountain
games?
West. You can't ask for
Yeah,
anything else.
I do want to
So
say this here though. Um, for clarification, this game will be played at Allegiant Stadium, right? But it is not neutral site. It is where UNLV plays. They will be the home team. It will be, UNLV colors everywhere on the field.
give me the Bronx.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Sun Belt. One of my favorite conferences this year, aside maybe from the Mountain West this year to cover. Troy, laying 6 at home versus App State. Let me get this out of the way. Troy -6 as we're picking on the show. There's 5.5s out there. That will be on Dawson's Diner preview. That's just a little foreshadow there. You're telling me I'm getting less than a touchdown with this Troy team at home. I get it. App State's been buzzing. They've won some games. There was a point in the season, though, where we thought App State might just lose it. They might not make a bowl game. And they've
Shame
rallied
on us.
and they've won some games. How they won the James Madison game, I may never know. The Coastal Carolina game, I may never know. But
They lost that game in pretty epic fashion.
oh yeah, Coastal Carolina came back, won that game.
Yeah.
But then App State ended up beating James Madison. That propelled them to this game instead of Coastal Carolina. That's right. That's right. Thanks for the reminder. Gunnar Watson has been playing good football. And people are going to point to, what about that game at home against Louisiana? Okay. I don't care. This Troy team, every time I bet on them this year, they have figured out a way to cover. That is twice. 2-0. Make it 3. Give me Troy at home -6. In games that they've been at home, they've won by, well, they won by 18. They actually lost to James Madison by 2. But we know how good James Madison was, especially early in the season. And then Gunnar Watson started to find his rhythm. At home, you beat Western Kentucky. You murdered Arkansas State. You murdered South Alabama in the fourth quarter. And then, yeah, I guess you had that game with Louisiana. It really should have been a more ugly game, if you ask me. But I think Gunnar Watson's been playing well. Come on, Vidal. I think they're going to find a way to do it, man. Win by a touchdown, Troy. How about it? I know I'm just chalk today. I'm absolutely chalk today, but I think that's how this week goes. I think there's a lot of chalk to be had.
Yeah, I think that's the right play. Gunnar Watson's going to play well. Vidal, I think he's going to really find room in a pretty below average run defense for App State. They can really be had in the ground game. And I think that's where Troy and John Zermelo can really exploit, right? App State's defense and keep that offense, explosive offense off the field. They have been humming. They have been humming ever since we thought, maybe they'll throw in the towel, like you mentioned. They have been absolutely humming. 48 points, 31-9, 42 points, 26 against James Madison. Impressive on the road there. And then just top up another 55 against Georgia Southern. It's hard to pick against them right now. They are hot. They are hot. But guess who else is hot too? Troy. After starting 1-2 on the year, they have rattled off 9 straight. You mentioned it. They have been awesome at home, in conference. They've been blowing teams out. This team is on another level than everybody else in the conference, other than James Madison. But we did see App State. We did see App State compete with them. That's why I do think this will be a game. I do think Troy wins by 7, and that's about it. I'm not gonna bet it myself. I know you're on them. I do like to play. I do see how it is, but I do think that backdoor cover scares the poop out of me with how well that offense is playing for App State.
Troy's got a pretty good defense.
Oh yeah, they do, but so does James Madison, right?
You're right.
And to me, this is more of
But
like,
here's the thing:
hey,
like
Sean
we've
Clark
been
is really
waiting.
good.
Oh, we've kind of
Aguilar's
been
good.
waiting for that bubble to burst with James Madison. Um, I can't find the stats in front of me. You can find the stats in that game, but I think we've been kind of waiting for like that secondary to kind of not implode, but we've been kind of waiting for that bubble to burst. And we thought it was going to be Georgia Southern. Then Georgia Southern just went on an absolute skitter for the rest of the season. Davis Brin and the boys there. But yeah, felt like App State caught him at a good time. I think Troy's defense, like I think Troy would be favored against James Madison. I think.
Yeah, probably not by much. Um,
Like
a neutral site.
this game rightfully should be James Madison versus Troy. I think Troy's favored.
If it's at Troy, yeah. Neutral site, I bet it's a pick 'em, or maybe 1.5 for Troy.
Maybe.
But yeah, in that game, App State against James Madison, Aguilar had 310, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. They did not run the ball well at all.
We've been
But they
waiting though
really
for
got
that
him through
secondary to
the
get exposed. And I mean credit to James Madison for plugging those holes for as long as they did, but App State got him. Troy does not have that same problem in the secondary. I can promise you.
App State had 8 players to have a reception of over 10 yards for first downs.
Yeah.
That is incredible
Yeah, it is incredible.
in that one game.
Give me the
And
Trojans.
they took them to win in overtime.
You're on the Trojans too?
I am, but I do see a path here for App State, Sean Clark, to get it done here.
It's a good coach. He's a two great coach.
Yeah. Do you see these teams, these coaches somewhere else? I hope they're not. For the Sun Belt Conference, I mean, if you're the Sun Belt, you are looking at this and you're like, what can we do to keep our coaches? Should have been. And yeah,
I mean, Summerall, the obvious one, like if Mark Stoops had gone to A&M, like I think he would have been the first guy that they got on the phone with at Kentucky, being that he was a former
yeah.
DC there. Sean Clark, dude, he's a
He's a
mountaineer,
for lifer
man.
there.
He's a for lifer there. Now, if the like North Carolina job opens up and they give him an offer he can't refuse, I could see him going there. I mean, same way Jonathan Smith. I mean, we thought he was a for lifer at Oregon State, but if the money's big enough and the program's good
circumstances. Enough. It was circumstance I think dictated that more. If the Pac-12 had its shit together, right, and that commissioner wasn't an absolute Nimrod, it would have been a lot different there for Jonathan Smith in the future of Oregon State. I think Sunbelt sees himself as, hey, like there is a question about who is number 5 in conferences, and with the SMU losing to the with SMU going to the ACC, the American is definitely, I don't know, like they've lost their top dogs. They have lost their top dogs, and I don't know.
It's the Sun Belt, baby.
The Sun Belt, I think it is, without a doubt. I mean, they have 12 teams going bowling. You have 12 teams going bowling.
More than any other conference.
No, I don't think that's the end all be all, but you have elite teams at the top. Troy, James Madison, obviously. App State's a really good third best team in the country in the conference. Coastal Carolina with obviously hurts you're losing McCall for next year, but yeah, I think the future's bright there. If you can keep South Alabama's coach, you keep Sunraw for another year. Sean Clark seems like he's there for a while. I mean, all of a sudden,
Tim Beck's not going anywhere.
No.
So, speaking of great G5 football, let's get to MAC. Let's get to the action. Toledo favored by 7.5. I think 8 in a lot of places, but for the show, we're picking it at 7.5. I mean, because, we don't like picking it at even numbers all the time. We just pick Troy at an even number. This is kind of a tough one for me. I mean, Smith at quarterback has been nothing but not impressive. But they're winning
in
ball games.
4 wins. In 4 wins.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's been nothing but impressive. But then he's been nothing but not impressive. But he's impressed me that he's winning ball games, if that makes sense. Amos is a good ball carrier. I think there's just such a talent difference here, though. Like, Toledo is a legit good team. They're a legit good team. But with that being said, the Miami of Ohio Redhawks, that defense is electric. Now, Penny Boone, he might have his. Daquan Finn might have his a little bit. Sure. Let's call it how it is. This is a 21-17 game. We know it. Everyone knows it. Give me Toledo win. Red Hawks plus 7.5.
Okay. I do like that middle there for you. I do think that defense is really legit for Miami, Ohio. It's a shame they don't have Gabbert in this game. Yes, Smith has been giving it his all, but he is not the same. Gabbert really turned the corner this year. He's playing good football. They would give him an actual chance here. Problem is, as you mentioned, the talent gap is just pretty significant for the MAC. It's pretty significant there with Toledo. 7.5 is, to be honest, I think a little low. I'm gonna go Toledo minus 7.5. I know at
I don't blame you.
times this year they have struggled or just kind of not gotten up for games. But in this game, how do you not get up for it? It's Ford Field. It's the MAC championship. A New Year's Six
Yeah.
bowl is on the line for Toledo if the right things fall in their way. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it's a shame though that Gabbert's not playing. I do think Penny Boone, Finn, and the fellas there, they will get after the Miami defense. A couple weeks ago, when go back to October, it was a 21-7 game at Miami, Ohio with Gabbert for most of that game. And Toledo jumped on him early. It was actually 21-3. And they kind of let the foot off the gas, right? Miami, Ohio fought the way back into it. Obviously, it wasn't enough, but I think this time they jump on him. I don't think they have Brett Gabbert to climb back in this game. It's not at home. They don't have that momentum of the crowd. I think Toledo gets it done here in pretty comfortable fashion.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that. This is one of those games I actually don't feel great about picking at all. In fact, actually, in these conference games, I feel good about two of them. I feel good about, well, I don't want to spoil Dawson's Diner. If you guys are just watching the cut up of this, you guys can watch the full video to get Dawson's Diner on YouTube or catch us on Spotify. But if you're watching this full video, Dawson's Diner is coming up pretty soon here, so I won't spoil it. But I don't like a ton of these picks that I'm making at all. At all. Now, granted,
As you should, though. That should be conference weekend, though.
it should be conference weekend. We've done pretty good against ATS these last couple of weeks, so my gut says in this game in action at Ford Field says throw away the numbers. I'm pretty sure there's like a pretty absurd stat about the underdog in MAC championships is like 12-5 ATS the last 17 years or something like that. So if
That's
you're gonna give
so
me
on
more than
par.
if you're gonna give me more than a touchdown, I'll take it. I'll take it. But yeah, I'm excited for this game. So
What is path to victory here for Miami, Ohio? Is it run the football, turnovers,
yeah, it's
field
stop the
position?
run the ball, and stop the run. That's it.
Yeah.
Control the game, leave it down. Like, yep, just make it a one possession game. Stay in the ball game, right, and just find any way that Toledo can possibly make a mistake down the stretch, right. It's you keep the game close. Don't make the mistakes yourselves. Wait for something to happen, and then you gotta capitalize on opportunities. If there's a botch snap, you gotta jump on that ball, and then you
Yeah.
gotta put it in. If you find yourself in the red zone, you gotta find a way to get in. Touchdowns, not field goals for Miami of Ohio.
And I think you'll see the coaching staff and the game plan kind of reflect that. And that's why I think what creates that variability here is like you're gonna be aggressive here. You know you have the talent. There's a talent gap. You know you don't have the talent to compete with Toledo, all things equal. You know you don't have the quarterback to compete with Toledo, all things equal. You have to find a way to make up for those margins, fourth downs, fake punts. You're going to see Miami trick plays. The bag should be emptied in this game. I think it will be. Of course, it's the MAC. It always is. It feels like a random Tuesday or Wednesday. It's always emptied for them. But yeah, I think Toledo here gets done.
Let's talk CUSA. Liberty,
Bibbidi.
Liberty, playing the fighting Jerry Kills of New Mexico State. Two teams that are on an absolute collision course of destiny. Now, these teams played early in the year. Final score of that game, I believe, was 33-17. So Liberty certainly covering in that game. But that was also early season New Mexico State. We know what early New Mexico State looked like. Early season New Mexico State was me week 0 betting on them to cover the spread against UMass and then losing straight up to Foman Shah or whatever his name was, the Clemson transfer. Jeez.
So bad UMass team.
Yeah, what a long way we have come. New Mexico State coming off an absolute dogfight of a win against Jacksonville State, a beatdown of a win against Auburn. They've just Western Kentucky. They've just rattled off win after win after win, and good wins too. Like in terms of CUSA wins, like those are good CUSA wins, and then you beat an Auburn team on the road. Liberty Bibberty has just absolutely Liberty Bibberty themselves into an undefeated regular season and just have absolutely plowed through everyone in their way. Caden Salter is a stud of a quarterback. Like the fact that what I will say though is, yeah, Jonathan Bennett is pretty bad. Going into the season, the only reason why I was worried about potentially taking Liberty's over, because I think it was at 9.5. And look at their schedule. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's such an easy schedule, and they have the talent to do it. My question mark was, Jonathan Bennett kind of stinks. Well, we saw what happened to this team when they don't have a guy named Jonathan Bennett playing quarterback. Caden Salter's been a guy. And look, we haven't really covered them in a lot of games this year because they're in some games where they're favored by quite a bit of points, and we expect them to win. They've been on the upset meter a couple of times, but they've just given us the business. So they've told us to absolutely go to hell. So I find it tough picking this game. Liberty's favored by 10.5, right? I mean, straight up, right? You take Liberty to win the game, right? The question is though, do you middle this? That's the
Yeah.
question. Is that what you're doing?
No, I think that is the question. I'm gonna agree with you there. Back in early September, this feels like forever ago. Liberty will kind of kick the snot out of New Mexico State. It was close at halftime, but in that second half they really separated. Caden Salter had 4 touchdowns. Pavila was kind of meh, but this is a much different New Mexico State team than it is right now. Right. Since then, I believe they are on 10-1. Or I'm sorry, 9-1 since that game. Obviously, doing pretty damn well in conference. Yeah, I don't know here. I think part of it is like Liberty is a little bit worse than I think people think they are, and I think New Mexico State is a little bit overinflated based on that Auburn win. I think that was not fluky, but it was impressive. But I think it was like they're not actually 21 points better than Auburn. If they were, they would beat Liberty pretty easily. Well, I don't know about easy, but it would be a much closer game.
Yeah.
No,
What I
man,
will say
Pablo's
about
playing
this
awesome right now. They
game
just seem like the sorry.
this game is in Virginia. Liberty's getting a home
Yeah.
game here. It's in Lynchburg.
Again.
The weather's not supposed to be great. 51 degrees, potential rain. So it's like, which team can run the ball better, right? And your first instinct is like, okay, New Mexico State's, they're known for running the ball, right? Well, Liberty happens to, in fact, lead the country, I believe, in like, I don't know, yards per carry. So, and if you would have asked me that before the season, I would have said, I don't know, man, because Jonathan Bennett, like if he was playing quarterback, they might be a little bit one-dimensional, so teams would focus on the run. And Day Hunter, of course, was relieved from the team, so he wasn't even playing. But how about a guy like Quinn Cooley? All 5'7" and 210 pounds of him, rushing for
He's
1,200
awesome.
yards at this point, 13 touchdowns. I like him a lot. I think this is where the Fighting Jerry Kills go to die. Personally, I think Liberty's getting up for this game. I think they covered the 10.5. I think Caden Salter's I think there's just a giant talent gap. And granted, there was a giant talent gap in the Auburn game. And that game was also on the road as well. Auburn was pretty one-dimensional as a team. Liberty is not. They are balanced. Caden Salter, 2,400 yards, 29 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And he also has 900 yards on the ground. So, and 11 rushing touchdowns. Not exactly Jaden Daniels numbers, but he's playing at a very high level for a dual threat quarterback. So give me the Fighting Liberty Bibberties with Caden Salter minus 10.5.
I'm gonna agree with you. I do think that Liberty or New Mexico State weaknesses kind of play into Liberty's hands. I think they've been like Jacksonville State running the ball well on them. The problem is they got down early in that game. So like they had to go away from the run. I don't think that happens to Liberty. I do think though, if you are New Mexico State and you get up on and you get up on Liberty, right? Weird things can happen. And Salter, I like him out of the pocket. I like him running the ball. I don't love him, in your 5-step drops and getting back and reading progressions on 3rd and long. I don't love that for him. That scares me for Liberty. He can do it, but I think he's at his best when he's out of the pocket. He's got the threat to run the ball or throw the ball. You can use your other backs you have in Cooley and the others. I
Billy
don't know, man.
Lucas.
Yep. That's why I'm gonna go Liberty here, but it's definitely like I don't feel good about picking against Jerry Kill, picking against Diego Pavila in a big game.
Yeah, I mean, Liberty's averaging 295 yards rushing per game. That is more than Air Force. That is more than West Virginia. That is more than UCF. That's more than LSU. That's more than Toledo. It's more than Kansas. More than Army. I don't know. I think there's just such a talent. Like if you ask me, like which team runs the ball better, it's Liberty. Which team has the better quarterback? It's Liberty. Which team has a better coach? I would say probably Jerry Kill,
It's
but Jamie Chadwell is a fantastic coach in his own right.
it
So
it,
I,
it
I don't give the
yeah.
edge necessarily to any team specific. And Liberty's at home. I think everything points in their direction. Give me Liberty Bibbies. The Flames.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a job. I hope that no, I don't hope it, but I would feel good for Liberty if they do get a win here and they look really good in it. I think people have disrespected them because of that schedule. To no fault of their own, like they're just it happened that CUSA was pretty bad this year. It's pretty terrible this year, and their out of conference was not much better. In Buffalo and Bowling Green and even Old Dominion. But yeah, I don't know. I think Liberty gets done here. If they win this, are they into a New Year's Six game? Potentially. That's why I think this is a really big deal for them. And I think it'd be awesome. Jamie Chadwell's first year there, Caden Salter and the boys going to New Year's Six game. And they could actually compete in one of those. Like they have the talent to do so for sure. You mentioned it. Like this team, I know it's their first year in the CUSA, but they are supremely talented. And because of that, they've kind of rolled through conference play.
Let's get to everyone's favorite segment. Dawson's Diner. We got 2 plays so far. Now, look, there's going to be plays later this week. I promise you. Okay, we'll get them out before Friday night. They're going to be interesting plays. They're not going to be your normal totals, your normal games. We're not working with a lot here. All right, so here's the appetizer. All right, it's a 2-piece appetizer. Michigan minus 22. Just like for every other
Ash.
reason we talked about, just you have to, right? You have to. They're more than 3 touchdowns better than Iowa. Troy minus 5.5. I just like them a lot at home. They've been good to me all year. Don't let me down, Troy Trojans. And that's another team that, like, power ratings wise, they're right around the top 25 team in the country, if you were to ask me. I don't think App State is that. So I think there's a discrepancy here. I think there should be over a touchdown. So that's it. Just Michigan minus 22, Troy minus 5.5. Let's do it. Let's go out on a bang. And again, if you're listening on Spotify and you can't read the graphic on the screen by watching on YouTube, which by the way you should do too, like and subscribe to YouTube channel as well as rate us 5 stars on Spotify. Make sure that you're following us on Twitter at the Redshirt Soft. Make sure you're getting these lines before they move, and also maybe some specialty plays this week. So it might be a special menu this week for Dawson's Diner. Is all I'm gonna say. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for joining us on our 2023 Conference Championship previews. All right, like we said before, like the video, like the content, right? Like the video if you like the content, right? And if you don't have to like the
That's
video,
better.
right? Now, if you want to comment, let us know what we're doing. If there's, any off-season stuff that you want us to cover, specific people, the transfer portal, fits, coaching fits, we're going to get into all that, right? Once this off-season starts, but just let us know. We'd love to talk about what you guys want to talk about because the off-season, it has a lot. It has so much. There's a lot to get to, so it's hard to decipher what we want to cover, what we want to even talk about because there's so much. Let us know. Just let us know. All right. CD, you got anything for us?
No, we appreciate your support all season long. Again, like we say every time, thank you guys so much. It means the world to us. Yeah, enjoy conference weekend. This is one of the better ones I can think of in the last, 15 years. This is really, really special. And enjoy every minute of it. Watch all the games, watch all the highlights, and have fun. And we'll see you guys on Monday for the breakdowns of it for sure.
Oh, yeah. We will see you in the next one.